Some nights you hear a siren and feel relief, because at least that sound has an explanation. This is Whisper Loop. If you enjoy stories where the rules of death feel procedural and quietly unfair, tap like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Would you open your door if you knew the knock wasn't meant for you? Now listen, I rented the studio because it was close to my job. That was the practical reason. The real reason was that I'd been running from quiet places. Quiet places give your mind room to notice what it shouldn't. My apartment sat above a pet shop and across the road from a building that never slept, the emergency ward. All night, the street was alive. Ambulances arriving, families arguing in hushed bursts, nurses on smoke breaks, taxis idling with engines humming. Noise is a kind of blanket, so I thought I'd finally found a place where my odd sensitivity could drown. I'd had it since childhood. Not visions, not dramatic apparitions, just moments when the air felt occupied, when a hallway felt crowded though it was empty, when a room's corner seemed to hold its breath. I learned early not to talk about it. People either treat you like a liar or a magnet. Neither is safe. The first week in the studio went fine. The pet shop owner, an older woman named May, kept the ground floor bright and clean. The animals were noisy during the day and quiet at night, except for the occasional bark when someone passed. I settled into routine. Work, dinner, sleep. Then the chain sounds began. The first time it was just after midnight. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it from the stairwell. A slow scrape, metal dragging over concrete. Not loud, a patient sound, like someone pulling a chain that didn't snag because they'd pulled it 1,000 times before. I froze, toothpaste foaming in my mouth. Outside my window, an ambulance siren rose and fell. I listened harder. The chain sound moved upward. 1 step, 2, pause, then another step. I rinsed my mouth and cracked my door open a sliver. The hallway was empty, the lights were on, nothing moved, but the air smelled faintly of rain, even though the weather was dry. I shut the door. I told myself it was the building's old pipes, a neighbor dragging something, a tired imagination. Then the pet shop dogs started barking. Not the usual alert bark, a panicked, frantic sound. May's shop wasn't open at midnight. The animals should have been asleep, but they barked like something had stepped into the room with them. I heard May's voice muffled through the floor. "Quiet," she hissed. The barking didn't stop. Then all at once it cut off. Silence, not calm silence, stunned silence, as if something had put a hand over every muzzle at once. My skin prickled. And then, right outside my door, I heard the chain scrape again, closer. A slow pull, a pause, a soft clink, like a metal tag tapping a wall. I held my breath. A thought arrived, unwanted, vivid. Do not look through the peephole. I don't know where the thought came from. I only know it felt like a rule that had existed long before me. So I didn't. The chain dragged away, down the hall, toward the stairwell, then it stopped. I waited. Minutes passed. No knock came. The hospital sirens outside resumed their usual rhythm. I slept poorly, but I slept. The next day, May caught me at the stairwell. She looked tired. "Your place is quiet?" she asked. I hesitated. "Mostly." She studied my face. "You heard it." My stomach tightened. "Heard what?" May didn't answer immediately. She glanced toward the shop's front door, then lowered her voice. "The chains," she said. My throat went dry. "You hear them too?" I whispered. May's mouth tightened. "Not with ears, with animals." She rubbed her hands together as if washing something off. "When the chain sound comes," she whispered, "they either bark like mad, or they go silent like they forgot how." I swallowed. "What is it?" May's eyes flicked upward toward my floor. "In the old days," she said, "people said there are messengers. They come when it's time." My chest tightened. "You mean collectors?" May flinched. "Don't say it so loudly." A chill crawled up my arms. I hadn't expected her to confirm it. I'd expected her to laugh. She didn't. She only said, "If you hear the chain, don't open. And don't stand in the hallway. If it's not for you, you keep it that way." Then she added softer, "And don't be kind." I stared. "Don't be kind?" May's gaze was weary. Kindness is an invitation. That night, the chain sound returned. 12:37 a.m. Scrape. Pause. Scrape. My heart raced. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, counting my breaths. The chain moved up the stairwell again. It reached my floor. It dragged along the hallway. Then it stopped, right outside my neighbor's door. Unit 3B. A young man lived there, always in scrubs, always exhausted. We nodded politely in the hall. That was the extent of our relationship. The chain clinked. Then a knock. Not loud, not threatening. A polite knock. 3 taps, then silence. I held my breath. From 3B I heard movement, a shuffle, then the neighbor's voice, groggy. Yeah? My blood went cold. He was answering. A soft voice responded from the hall. Not deep, not raspy. A voice that sounded like a tired clerk. Is this Mr. Hahn? My neighbor mumbled. What? The clerk voice repeated, patient. Is this Mr. Hahn? I didn't know my neighbor's name, but I knew enough to feel dread, because the voice outside didn't sound like a person who needed directions. It sounded like a person confirming an entry on a list. My neighbor, confused, said, No, you've got the wrong door. Silence. Then the clerk voice said, very softly, Apologies. The chain clinked, it dragged away. My neighbor's door opened a crack. I heard him exhale, annoyed. Then he stepped into the hallway. That was when May's warning echoed in my skull. Don't stand in the hallway. He stepped out anyway. The hallway lights flickered once, not off, just dipped. My neighbor muttered, Hello? The chain sound stopped. Then from the far end of the corridor, a second sound answered. Another chain, slower, heavier, as if the first had been a junior clerk and the second was the supervisor. My neighbor's footsteps faltered, but I could picture him, standing in the hallway with a confused face, searching for someone who'd already decided how the interaction would go. The heavier chain sound approached, then stopped, right outside my door. My stomach dropped. A polite knock, 3 taps. The clerk voice returned, Is this Mr. Hahn? I didn't answer. My lungs burned. The voice repeated, slightly firmer, Is this Mr. Hahn? In the pet shop below, a dog whined, long and thin. My neighbor's voice sounded far away now, like he'd backed toward the stairwell. Hey, he said, uncertain. I told you, wrong door. The clerk voice paused, and said, Correct, wrong door. A pause, then very softly. Then why did you answer? My neighbor didn't speak. The heavier chain clinked, and then abruptly the chain outside my door moved away, not down the hall, toward my neighbor. A muffled sound followed, like someone dropping a metal object, a tag, a nameplate, something that should not be lost. Silence. Then May's shop lights flickered downstairs. A dog barked once, then went silent. The hallway temperature dropped. I sat up trembling. From 3B, a faint sound leaked through the wall. Not a scream, not a struggle. A low, strangled gasp, like someone trying to speak and finding no words. My stomach twisted. My hand reached for my doorknob. Then I remembered May's rule. Don't be kind, because kindness is an invitation. I froze. The gasp stopped. Minutes passed. I heard footsteps, slow, measured, moving away. 2 sets, 2 chains. The hallway lights returned to normal. The hospital sirens outside continued, indifferent. I didn't sleep. In the morning, 3B's door was open. Not wide, just ajar. A sliver of darkness inside. I stood outside it, heart pounding. I didn't knock. I didn't go in. I remembered the warning, do not invite. May watched from the stairwell, face pale. You heard it, she whispered. I nodded. She rubbed her eyes. Sometimes they make mistakes, she said. Sometimes they go to the wrong door first. My throat tightened. And if someone answers? May's gaze dropped. Then the mistake becomes paperwork. I stared at her. Paperwork? She sighed. A correction, a balance, a replacement, whatever word makes you feel better. I swallowed. Is he? May shook her head sharply. Don't ask. Don't name it. Naming is another door. A maintenance man arrived later, annoyed at the open door. He knocked. No answer. He opened it fully. Then he hesitated, frowning. He stepped inside, looked around, then called out. I watched from my doorway, frozen. The maintenance man emerged a minute later, expression confused. Place is empty, he muttered. May and I exchanged a look. Empty. But I knew my neighbor had lived there. I'd seen his shoes, his scrubs hanging by the door, his coffee cup on the stairwell rail. The maintenance man locked the unit and walked away, grumbling about irresponsible tenants. And just like that, the building's story adjusted. A missing person wasn't a missing person. It was a vacancy. My hands shook. That night I couldn't stand it. I went downstairs to May's shop after closing. She let me in without a word. The animals watched me with wary eyes. I told her everything I'd heard. When I finished, May nodded, as if she'd expected it. Do you know what the worst part is? She whispered. I swallowed. May pointed to the floor, near the shop's back room. On the tile lay something small and metallic. A tag. A thin rectangle of dark metal, stamped with characters too worn to read. A chain link still attached, snapped clean. My mouth went dry. It dropped last night, May whispered. Right there. Like it wanted someone to find it. My stomach twisted. Why? May's eyes were tired. Because if a messenger loses its tag, it needs someone alive to return it. Someone who can touch what they carry. My skin crawled. So me. May nodded. You heard them. You felt the rule. That means you were close enough to be useful. I stared at the tag. It looked ordinary, and yet the air around it felt careful. Like the room itself didn't want to disturb it. May's voice dropped. If you don't return it, they'll come back for it, and they won't be polite about the delay. My throat tightened. If I do return it, then I'm inviting them. May's gaze held mine. That's why I said don't be kind. I swallowed hard. Then I did something I regret and don't regret at the same time. I picked up the tag. The metal was colder than it should have been. Not ice cold. Absence cold. Like the warmth of my hand had nowhere to land. The animals in the shop went silent. May whispered, "Don't look at it too long." I didn't. I wrapped it in a cloth and held it like a fragile lie. That night at 12:37 a.m. again, exactly, the chain sound returned. But this time it didn't climb. It waited. Downstairs, at the building entrance, I stood at my door holding the wrapped tag. My heart hammered. May's words echoed, "Don't stand in the hallway." So I didn't. I went down the stairwell slowly, staying close to the wall. The air grew colder with each step. When I reached the ground floor, the building's entrance looked normal. Glass doors, a dim lobby light. Outside, the hospital street glowed with ambulances and taxis. But in the lobby's reflection, something moved. Not a full figure, a suggestion. Two silhouettes that didn't cast shadows correctly. One held a chain, the other held a ledger, a book. Not paper, not quite. Something that absorbed light. The clerk voice spoke from the lobby without moving lips. "Item misplaced," it said. My throat tightened. I held the cloth-wrapped tag out, keeping my eyes on the floor tiles. "Here," I whispered. The air shifted. A chain clinked. I felt something approach. Not by footsteps, but by pressure. The cloth was pulled from my hand, not tugged. Removed. A faint sound like a pen scratching paper filled the lobby. Then the clerk voice said, "Correction noted." I swallowed. He answered the wrong door. I whispered, unable to stop myself. Silence. Then very softly the clerk voice replied, "Courtesy has consequences." My stomach dropped. I forced myself not to ask more, not to bargain, not to plead, because pleading is a conversation, and conversations become invitations. The lobby warmed. The chain sound retreated, fading like rain at the end of a street. I climbed the stairs back to my unit, shaking. When I reached my floor, I glanced at 3B's door. It looked ordinary, closed, quiet, like nobody had ever lived there. That was the most unsettling part. Not that someone was taken, but that reality adjusted around it, smooth and bureaucratic. A correction noted, a vacancy created, a hallway that kept moving. I moved out 2 weeks later. May didn't argue. She only bowed slightly, eyes sad. "Stay where it's loud," she whispered. I tried, but even in busy streets sometimes I hear it. A slow chain scrape, a polite knock, a voice asking the wrong question at the wrong door. And I remember the rule I learned too late. If something comes looking for a name, don't help it spell yours. If this story made you glance at your door, tell me in the comments. Like and subscribe to Whisper Loop for more stories where the horror doesn't roar, it files forms.